In today's video, we are going to talk about what is happening right now with Ubisoft. Because supposedly, according to a very respected source of economy, finance and all that, right now at the Ubisoft board table, everyone is sitting around looking at each other and putting a price on Ubisoft because the company's sale seems to be imminent. Be careful, it's one of the biggest video game companies in the world. And it's also one of the most hit video game companies in the world, and they made some of the worst decisions in recent times. Because the reality of Ubisoft, the one it's experiencing today, and the reality that's pushing these people to put a price on the company to finish it off, well, they brought it on themselves. And they built it over the last few years. And all the titles that were supposed to save Ubisoft, this year they didn't work. If it's okay with you, let's start with a brief review of what happened with Ubisoft this year and what games they launched on the market, which were Ubisoft's lifelines that didn't end up working as lifelines, but rather as stones that sank it to the depths of the ocean. And we start with a game precisely from the ocean, Skullbones. A title for which we don't have official figures, but we know it didn't do well, it's a failure. And they also spent hundreds of millions of dollars and about a decade developing it. That is, they must have spent a fortune that never came back. Then we have the Prince of Persia game, which is a great game. It's one of the best things Ubisoft has released in a long time, but it had so little impact that Ubisoft directly decided to dissolve the team that developed it. There's also another Prince of Persia game, the Rogue Prince of Persia, which wasn't developed by Ubi, but they do make some money from the license and publishing it and more. But we're also looking at a game that's a pretty good, pretty decent early access, but it's far from saving the company. Ex-Defiant isn't bad at all. It's another game that cost an absolute fortune. A lot of resources were put into this game, and it was hoped that it would be such an important release. They even went so far as to say it was going to kill Call of Duty. Well, Ex-Defiant crashed into a wall, a giant wall of reality against which it smashed its face. It's already dead. Ex-Defiant, it's not even 6 months on the market, and it's already dead. They closed studios, fired people, and other things we're going to talk about later. Star Wars Outlaws, perhaps Ubisoft's best launch this year in terms of sales. It could potentially be, well, it might be the best. Ubisoft's launch this year, but it falls far short of the company's expectations. In terms of sales, in terms of revenue, in terms of making money, they are so desperate for this game to pick up because at least it's not a stone that sinks them. They fired the game's creative director after having launched the video game, something that never happens. And all this to hire another guy to see if they could fix the title and make it more interesting. It's not a bad game, but it's not at all what Ubisoft needs. This game also came out. Why not? The Battlecore Arena. There it is. And you were unaware of its existence. And that it was from Ubisoft. An iOS 1 came out. The Rabbids Legends and the Multiverse. And I don't know how much more. Another game that nobody found out about. Rainbow Six Small came out. Another thing that I really don't know why they spend time and money developing these things. It's nice, yes. It's available on Netflix Games free with your Netflix subscription. But no one is interested. It doesn't affect the outcome in any way. And let's not forget about Champions Tactics Grimoral Engines, the Ubisoft non-fungible token game. Please, let's not forget about this. Because this is also a desperate attempt to see if they can make money with something. Anyway, we had all of 2024 without a single success. Or maybe considering that the most successful game of all 2024 was Star Wars, a game that according to Ubisoft itself did not meet the expected standards. It's true, we're not making this up. An entire company of 20,000 employees went a full year without a single success. With over 50 studios, I think it's crazy. A whole year without a success. Investing hundreds of millions of dollars, that was going to have consequences. And of course it had consequences. All of a sudden, they closed 2 studios, Ubisoft San Francisco and Ubisoft Osaka, which I had no idea existed. And they also announced 277 employees laid off. It was revealed that around 500 people were working at Ex-Defiant. 500 people working at Ex-Defiant. For how many years? The cost of having 500 employees on a project for 5 years is insane. Well, they lost all of that. First announced in 2021, Ex-Defiant has been in development all these years. Well, regarding all these closures, Yves Guillemot, the chief executive officer of Ubisoft, that is the big boss, issued a private statement to all employees to calm things down to smooth the waters. The problem is that the statement was leaked. And the statement gives us a glimpse of how they live in a new imaginary at Ubisoft. Hello everyone, it's been a while since I last spoke to you, and I apologize for this silence. Surely the employees of Ubisoft are complaining about this silence, because everything is going up in flames and your boss doesn't come out to say anything is worrying. I am aware that in the current context these types of announcements can worry you, and it's understandable. And of course, brother, there are people who are worried because they don't want to lose their job, damn it. The whole sector is facing similar difficult decisions. No, Yves Guillemot, the one who is facing similar decisions, is because he made bad decisions. Don't blame the context. I speak to him as if he were going to listen. He comments that the problem with Ex-Defiant was to challenge the best shooter on the market and not achieving it because the goal was not reached. Which is also a way to absolve oneself of blame, as if to say, we were competing against the best. Well, we didn't manage to beat it. I'm doing everything I can to help us regain momentum so that we can continue making Ubisoft a key player in our industry. A creator known for its unique and exceptional video games. And you see, 5, 6, 7 years ago, perhaps more than Ubisoft is not recognized for anything that is unique, but rather the opposite, for being a machine that systematically releases the same game over and over again. I don't know what reality this man lives in. He also mentions that later they will provide information to Ubisoft employees about the launch of Assassin's Creed Shadows. Some Ubisoft employees are unaware of what will transpire with Assassin's Creed Shadows. I understand that being such a large organization, this could happen. And they are going to share the progress made in strengthening the relationship with the players in the Crew Motorfest. That the players of the Crew Motorfest can be counted on one hand. Well, not so much, there are quite a few, but... And the players of Star Wars Outlaws too. We have not been able to attract and retain enough players in the long term to compete at the level we want in the demanding market of free first-person shooter. Pure excuses, just launched Marvel Rivals, competing in the same market that Ex-Defiant was going to compete. Look, 321,000 people playing right now. This year, the finals was launched, 14,000 people playing right now, not bad. Delta Force just launched, for example. Right now, 93,000 people, 92,000 more or less. Yes, the market of shooters, of the free-to-plays, is competitive, but that's not the reason for your failure. The reason for your failure is you and your decisions, and that's it. Lastly, they comment from Ubi something that is very worrying. The development of game-as-a-service experiences remains a pillar in our strategy, and we have achieved significant successes. Like which one? Rainbow Six, The Crew, and For Honor, they mentioned games that came out more than 6 years ago. Like which one in the last 5 years? This agent lives in a bubble. Let's review the online multiplayer and service games from Ubisoft of the last 5 years. Not to mention Ex-Defiant, which we already mentioned, which is already dead. Neither Skullbones, which is already dead, nor the non-fungible token thing they launched, also a service game, was dead on arrival. Let's review games from the last 5 years. From Ubisoft, we have Hyperscape in 2020. It was going to break all the molds. This game was going to be crazy. It was going to have collaborations in series animation and I don't know what else. It didn't even last a year, not even a year. In 2020, we also had Trackmania. Nobody expected anything from this game. Nothing. And that's what happened. Absolutely nothing. But there it is. It's not a bad game. Not at all. But there it is. Riders Republic, another one that didn't deliver, with none of the expectations set. That keeps alive based on from a group of users that do not exceed a couple of thousand people. It's not for the sake of pretending that these people do not exist. There are a couple of thousand people who play this title, but it's not enough. It's not enough to maintain a game as a service, much less one so ambitious. On Steam, right now, there are 40. The people playing Rainbow Six Extraction, there might be a little more people on consoles, and maybe a little more people on Ubisoft's launcher, no? But it's not justified. A new Rainbow Six release can't have 40 people on Steam. This title is not a bad game. In fact, it's quite fun. At launch, it was a bit twisted, but it's good. But there it is, nobody was interested. Roller Champions is dead. Nothing more than nobody who told him he was dead. Why do the servers continue despite this? Of this game, I have no idea. The Crew Motorfest, which came out this year, and the exact same thing happens with this title. What's going on with Riders Republic? Ubisoft keeps offering free trials or temporary passes for the game. They're going to give it away everywhere soon. They'll do whatever it takes to get people playing the game. And yet, despite all that effort, there are no more than a couple of thousand people playing. It's not a bad game, eh? Not at all. But it's far from being considered a success. And wait until Forza Horizon 5 is released. PlayStation 5 is rumored to release this game, but it's best to forget about it entirely. Because Forza Horizon 5 is a direct competitor of the Crew Motorfest. And Forza Horizon 5 is much better. Reuters, a medium specialized in business, market, finance, and all those things, released an article a few hours ago in which they assure, according to their sources, that Ubisoft is currently, right now, at this moment, planning the sale of the company. They give us a review of the entire history of everything that has been happening lately, which was more or less what I told you. And they quote what one of the Ubisoft spokespeople said recently, which is that they remain committed to seeing what is the best decision and the best path for investors, shareholders, and all the people who put money to be happy, to put it in some way. The purchase negotiations are taking place while some minority shareholders have been pressing to privatize or sell Ubisoft to a strategic investor amid the fall in share prices. And the conversations between the Guillemot family and Tencent are already established with the aim of avoiding a hostile takeover. That is to say, the two owners, the majority owners of Ubisoft, which are the Guillemot family and Tencent, who own more than 10% of the company, are looking to see who they sell it to. But it shouldn't be someone who buys Ubisoft and guts everything. That is, who cuts everything into little pieces and makes a mess. Like what happened in Brasselbrook with everything that was bought, which destroyed everything. The delay of Assassin's Creed Shadows makes more and more sense because, think about it, Assassin's Creed Shadows is Ubisoft's last bullet in the chamber. If Assassin's Creed Shadows were to turn out bad, Ubisoft would completely sink. Ubisoft's shares would completely hit the floor and the company would be worth absolutely nothing. In fact, today, Ubisoft is far below what it used to be in its best moments. It is estimated that today the company is worth exactly the same as it was 11 years ago, when it wasn't even a quarter of the size it is now. Well, what's going on with Assassin's Creed? The thing is, if it turns out bad, the shareholders and everyone who owns a portion of Ubisoft are going to lose a lot of money because the company will devalue even more and they will have to give it away. And if Assassin's Creed Shadows turns out well, perhaps it will improve the situation a bit. But by how much? Until when? Until the next stumble? Now, without releasing Assassin's Creed Shadows and holding back the game, they might be able to negotiate a better price on the shares. And they might find some unsuspecting person who decides to buy the company with the promise that Assassin's Creed Shadows is going to be an absolute hit. Maybe the delay of Assassin's Creed Shadows is not just because they are polishing the game and so on. And it's not just because they can't afford another stumble, no. But because they are indeed thinking about selling the company and they need that game not to be released yet. It's like when Microsoft bought Bethesda. There were many games that were not yet released. Some ended up being horrible, like Redfall, and others not. Like which one? But there they were. They were titles that were already developed. They were assets that added to the price of the company. Well, maybe Ubisoft is doing the same with Assassin's Creed Shadows. The vice president of Ubisoft recently, I mentioned it in a note this week, came out to comment that 50% of the employees who worked on the development of Assassin's Creed Shadows had never made a video game. It was their first video game. The vice president of Ubisoft. What can you expect from that? If I put 100 mechanics to build a Formula 1 car, there would be too many mechanics. I put 10 to build a Formula 1 car, and 5 had never built a car. That car is not going to be good. Don't challenge me, especially not for such an important game. It's impossible. Experience and many other things are required at Ubisoft. That's the reality, and it seems to be happening sooner rather than later. We are going to have the announcement of the sale of Ubisoft, perhaps to Tencent itself. Because perhaps they end up resolving this way, Tencent putting more money, buying the rest of the company. And that's it. They are already part of the board of directors. They already have a relationship with the Guillemots. Perhaps it's for the best. I strongly believe it would not be ideal for Ubisoft to be acquired by either PlayStation or Xbox. In neither of those two do I think it would be good. I don't believe Sony could handle the number of employees that Ubisoft has, because the hierarchical structure and how Sony PlayStation is organized is much smaller, much more contained. I believe it would get completely out of Microsoft's control. Activision's integration is still ongoing, and Tencent stands ready with a wallet full of money to potentially make further moves. One of the most important companies in the world and possibly beyond. I.e., if I had to take a risk, I would risk Ubisoft. If it goes on sale, it would be before Assassin's Creed Shadows, after years of accumulated failures. I'm unsure if they'll risk another failure. We'll see as Assassin's Creed Shadows releases in February next year. February 14th, the day of love and friendship. Friends, enjoy your weekend. The news compilation is out tomorrow. Today, I wanted to focus on this topic we've been closely following. I made another video about Yui. Share your thoughts in the comments. What do you think will happen?